Okay, so if you are watching this video, you should know two things. You should know how to identify like terms, and you should know what a coefficient is, a variable, and a constant is. So I guess that's 4 things. But you should have already watched that video or are confident enough in that you didn't need to watch the video. And now you're moving on to the next one, maybe you need a little extra help. So we're going to simplify these expressions, and then we're going to substitute for our variables. So I'm just going to get right into it. My first step, whenever I do any one of these problems, is I'm going to start by identifying my like terms. Now remember, a like term is anything, a variable is any term that has the same variable raised to the same exponent. So when I look at this and I look at the first one and I box that in because my pen keeps dying, driving me nuts, we've got 5x. So I know my variable is x, and my exponent, right, that little number in the corner, in this case we don't have one, so we actually know it's an invisible one. So now I'm going to look at the rest of this. This doesn't have an x, right? Negative 2 doesn't have an x, but 8x does. So I'm going to mark that one. Great. And I look at negative 3, and that also does not have an x. Make sure you box in your operation. So operation is plus, minus, subtract, or plus, minus, divide, and multiply. So make sure you include your plus sign right here in your box. Okay, now I'm going to move on to the next one, and I want to pick a deep, good color. And I'm going to circle this one because it's different. Now this is a constant because it's not being multiplied by a variable. And so I'm going to look for other constants, right? Numbers with no variables. And I see that minus 3 is a constant. So I'm going to circle that one. Now my next step is I'm going to write them in a different order. I'm just going to put my groups together. This is using the commutative property of addition. It just says, hey, if I'm adding stuff, I can move it around. And then I'm going to do that same thing. I already did my boxes. I'm going to do the same thing with my constants, right, or the ones I circled. And I'm actually going to go in and circle those so that I know they still go together. The better you get at this, you won't have to do your boxes and circles. But right now it's really helpful to have that visual if you want to do it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my box, and I'm going to add them together because I have that plus sign, right, that I kept from the plus 8x. I'm going to do 5 plus 8. Now if you don't know this off the top of your head, you can use your hands or you can use the number line that I gave you in your binder. But I know this one, so 5 plus 8 is 13. And so I know 5 plus 8 is 13. And I'm not just adding 5 plus 8, though. I'm adding 5x plus 8x, so it's 13x. So that's my first one. And then my second one is minus 2 minus 3. So you'll want to use your number line. So I'm actually going to show you on the number line how I would do this, especially if I don't have one. I'm going to start with negative 2. So I'm going to say that this is 0, I'm at 1, 2. So negative 2. And I'm going to put a dot right here. And then I know that I'm going to have to subtract 3. So 1, 2, 3. So negative. And I go 1, 2, 3. So this is my minus 3. So negative 2 minus 3. And I get negative 2, negative 3, negative 4. Sorry, I'm running out of space. Negative 5. So I go in the negative direction when I subtract and go positive direction when I add. So use your number line, that's why you have it, and you'll get negative 5. And then I check, do I have any parentheses? No. So parentheses, nope. And do I have any like terms? No. So I know that this is simplified. But it says when x equals 4. So now I have to substitute, right? So instead of putting x there, I'm going to replace it. So I have to replace or substitute 4 for x. So how I'm going to do that is first I'm just going to rewrite my problem. So when in doubt, you're going to rewrite it. But instead of writing x, I'm going to write my parentheses. That lets me know that I have a space that I need to fill up. Then I'm going to rewrite again, but I'm actually going to fill in my parentheses. So you can fill them in right away if you want. I just like to have lots of steps so you know exactly what I'm doing. And I put 4 because x equals 4. If you remember from way up here, my terrible arrow, from way up here. So now I'm going to multiply. And so I'm going to do 13 times 4, which I don't actually have memorized off the top of my head, but that should be 40 plus 12, so 52. And then I have minus 5. Okay, now that I have 52 minus 5, again, you can use your number line for this one. I know it's going to be 47. Alright, and that is the answer for whenever we substitute. So the first answer is how do you simplify. So the colorful part is where it's been simplified. The second part is now when we're substituting. So it might be good maybe if I write a note or something like that for this. So this is substitution. Sorry about my terrible handwriting. And then up here is simplification. So you don't always have to substitute when you simplify, but for the test, it's going to be a pretty big part of it for you to solve, right? For you to substitute to get a number as your answer. So this is our answer. Okay, now we're going to do the next one. So simplify the following expression when x equals 5 and y equals negative 2. So here we actually have two variables, and so we're not only dealing with a variable and a constant, we're actually dealing with a one variable and a different variable, and so we're going to substitute for different things, right? And so the first step, which is just simplifying, is going to be the same. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to box my first term. My variable is y and my exponent is 2. So I'm going to go look for other y's to the second power, or to the 2. This has no y, so that doesn't work. This one has a y, and we see it's got a exponent of 2. So he is our friend, he's our like term. And then this x over here does not have a y, so that doesn't work. My next term is plus 2x, so I'm looking for things with x's raised to the invisible 1. So with an exponent of invisible 1. And all I have left is this x over here, and wouldn't you know it, it has an invisible 1 exponent. Okay. So now my next step is to rewrite my equation, or my expression. Sorry, an equation has an equal sign. This has no equal sign, so it's an expression. I'm going to rewrite my expression, x squared, and then I'm going to go skip this one and go to the next box, minus 5, I said x squared, y squared minus 5, y squared. And then now I'm going to go to my x's, so plus 2x minus x. Okay, and I'm going to circle that if my thing would stop glitching, and I'm going to box this one in. Okay. Now I'm going to do y squared minus 5y squared. Now my coefficient for the minus 5y squared is 5. That means I have it's minus 5. That means I have minus 5 of y squared. But the one in the front actually doesn't have a number. So I know it's an invisible 1 minus 5. So we're going to have 1 minus 5. Again, use your number line. So you'll start at 1, you go in the negative direction, so it'll go 1, 0, -1, -2, -3, -4, and that's going to be our answer. It's -4, but don't forget your y squared, right? Because that's what made it a like term in the beginning, to begin with. And then we're going to do plus 2 minus x, and we will get 2 minus, again, there's an invisible 1. So 2 minus 1 is just 1. So we get plus 1. And that plus is because it's a positive. Now, I'm done with my simplifying because there are no more parentheses and there are no more like terms. Right? There's no more of those things. But this says simplify the following expression when x equals 5 and y equals -2. So, and I forgot something. My x right here. So, I need to go ahead and substitute. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to rewrite -4, and then instead, right, I'm going to do my parentheses, and I still have to keep that exponent even though I'm replacing the y. And then I do plus 1 and then parentheses. Be careful that you include this 2 in the exponent, because if you don't, you're going to get the wrong answer because that square tells us something. So we're going to get -4, and instead of y, we're going to put -2. Okay, and then we're going to do plus 1, and then instead of x, we're going to put 5. Okay, and then we'll get -4 times -2 to the second. So now that we've got it all written out, I actually need to expand this and then multiply. So what I mean by that is we have this square. Now hopefully you guys remember how to square things, but if not, we're going to go over it right now. And we have, so I'm going to start with my first term. I'm going to just write -4. But then when we have a square sign, that little 2 in the corner, so when our exponent is 2, what that means is whatever number is underneath the exponent, whatever the exponent's base is, so in this case -2, is going to be multiplied by itself, however many numbered the exponent is. So that was really confusing, so I'm just going to show you. So my base is -2, but I have an exponent of 2, so that actually means I need to just write it twice, which means I need to multiply it twice. But here I have no exponent, so that just gets written once as 1 times 5. Then we're going to go ahead and multiply it. Now, you guys have known that same signs are positive, different signs are negative, and that works with 2. But whenever you start out with just our first 2, so we're going to go with our first 2 and just multiply these 2, we'll get same signs, so we'll get positive. 4 times 2 is 8. But we still got to do that times 2. Okay, plus, well, what's 1 times 5? It is 5. Okay, now we still have some parentheses, so we're going to multiply again. But in this case, we actually have different signs, right? We have a positive and a negative. So we're going to get a negative sign, and we get 8 times 2, which is 16. Okay, and then we get plus 5. All right, now that we don't have any parentheses, now we can add these together. Again, you can use your number line. So I would put my dot at -16, and then I would go in the positive direction. So I would go positive direction 5 ticks. So I would go -16, right? And then -15, -14, -13, -12, -11. So we get -11 is our answer. and I don't know if I actually like those bases, negative 11 is our answer for that one. Feel free to speed this up if you need to. Alright, so we've done the first two. We got two more. You do not have to watch all of this. This is for your help. So if you don't feel like you need the help, you don't have to keep watching. But please watch this before you ask me for help so I can help other people who've already watched the videos. Alright. Also, if you have questions while you're watching the video, that is okay. You can ask me for help as well. Okay. Simplify the following expression when x equals negative 2. Okay. So we're back to x's and constants, right? So variables and constants, whereas before we had a lot of variables. However, we've got a lot of fractions, so fractions, and we've got a lot of decimals. And that looks really scary, but we're doing this just the same way we did the first one. So first I'm going to box this one in, and then I'm going to box in this one. Okay, those both have x's. I'm going to go in, I'm going to circle my constants. Okay, then I'm going to get 1/2 x, which is rewriting, plus 1/3 x minus 0.4 minus 1.5. Okay, so I've got it rewritten. Now I'm going to go ahead and add these things. Now this, to me, is really scary, right? Because I'm like, well, how do I add these two fractions? Now, of course, you could make this into a bigger fraction and add them, but because we have decimals included, I'm just going to turn every single thing into a decimal. So I turn this into a decimal. Well, this line right here, this means divide. So actually what this is saying is 1 divided by 2. So 1 divided by 2 is 0.5. You can use your calculator for this. And actually I'm going to go back to my orange. So 0.5 x. And then 1 divided by 3 is 0.33333, and it repeats for infinity. So divided by 3. So I'm just going to simplify it to be 0.33. And we've got x. Okay, great. And then I'm just going to rewrite this part because I'm not ready to deal with it yet. But notice they're already in decimals, so I don't have to rewrite everything. Okay. So now that everything is in decimals, I can go ahead and start to add my stuff together. So I'm just going to put those shapes back in there, and I'm going to start with this. Okay. So I'm adding 0.5x plus 0.33x. How you're going to do this? Use your calculator. So 0.5 plus 0.33 is not going to be 0.38, right? You're not adding this 5 to that last 3. That 5 is the same as like 50 cents. And that 3 is the same as 33 cents. So if you had 50 cents and 33 cents, you would end up with 83 cents. So 0.5 plus 0.33 using your calculator is 0.83. And remember our x, so 0.83x. Then we're going to do the next one. Now here we have some minuses, but I know that when I have a minus or a negative subtracting a number, right, it just makes a bigger, quote unquote, negative. So again, use your calculator and put this in there, and don't forget that negative in the front, and you'll get, and I can actually show you how to do this. So you can, let me get my, oh my gosh, where is it? Here we go, calculator. Ignore all of that. It's taking forever. Okay. Okay, and we get, you're going to put negative 0. Really? Is it commercial on my calculator? Okay, I give up. Basically, you're gonna get... Oh, I'm so annoyed. Everything is giving up in the world, and who knows if I'll actually cut this out. So, entertainment for y'all. Anyway, we'll get 0.4 minus 1.5. You just put it in your calculator. Make sure you don't forget this negative out in the front. And of course, my pen has died again, because of course it has. And we get negative 1.9. Alright, now again, we are done with our simplifying. However, we are not done with our substitution. So we need to substitute when x equals negative 2. So again, you're going to go in, you're just going to rewrite everything. But instead of writing x, you're going to write your parentheses. Okay? And then now I'm going to substitute with, we said x equals negative 2. Okay, minus 1.9. I wonder if I'm having a thing going on with this. Oh my gosh. Sure, it's great. Okay. Not now. Okay, so we want to do 0.83 times negative 2. So I'm going to put literally 0.83 times, and then I'm going to put this little negative 2. And you'll have a way of doing this on your calculator as well. If you need help with your calculator, raise your hand, I will help you. And then we get negative 1.66. So we're going to get negative, for the love of all that's good in the world, I'm going to lose it with this dang pen. Okay, negative 1.66. Okay, minus 1.9. So this is like a lot, right? So I would just, again, put it in your calculator. So we've already got negative 0.66, but I'm going to show you how to do it again. So you push that little negative 1.66. Okay, minus, and we had 1.9. 1.9. And we get negative 3.56. And this, believe it or not, is our answer. Now, what does this mean? It doesn't mean anything right now because we're just practicing. But you can use stuff like this, and it is used all the time in the real world. But for us to be able to use it, we have to practice the skill, right? So, you know, hopefully if you're in a sport, the first time you play that sport is not in a game against your opponents. The first time you play that sport is with your team when you're practicing. Same way here. You're practicing, and then later on, hopefully you will use this in the real world. I do use math like this all the time, even when I'm not teaching. Alright, we're going to do the last one. Simplify the following expression when x equals 5 and y equals 2. So, I'm going to start with my first one again, and I am going to box it in. If my pen will work. Oh my gosh. Sorry guys, everything I own is old, and it won't work with my finger. So, gonna box it in like this. Okay, great. Now I'm looking for other y's raised to the second power. Great. Remember, don't forget to box in your operation. So your pluses or your minuses. Don't forget those. Okay, now I'm going to go in and circle my x's raised to the 1. So now I've got that. I'm going to rewrite 3 over 4. Do not freak out. y squared minus 5y squared. Okay, and then I'm going to rewrite the plus 2x minus 0.4x. Okay, again, we have a problem, right? We have fractions, but we also have decimals. So how I would do this is I would turn my fraction, 3/4, into a decimal. So how I'm going to do that is I'm just going to go, remind me later. I'm going to do 3 divided by 4. And I get 0.75. Now, I already knew that because 3/4, right, is 75 cents. So I know that this is 0.75. But you can always do the top divided by the bottom, because remember, this means 3 divided by 4. That line means divide. So we get 0.75 y squared minus 5y squared plus 2x minus 0.4x. Okay, I'm going to circle that back, box in the front, just so I know everything's together. And now I'm going to add or subtract these. So this is a minus here, so I'm going to do 0.75, so 0.75 minus 5. We get negative 4.25. But don't forget we have to have our y squared. Okay, now for the next part, we're going to do 2 minus 0.4, right? Again, we have this minus right here, so I'm going to do, clear this, 2 minus 0.4. We get 1.6. So we get a positive, so we're a plus because it's positive, 1.6, and we can't forget our x. Now we are done simplifying, right? We've simplified, but now we need to go in and substitute for x and y. So my first step, you guessed it, we're just going, that was so obnoxious. You're just gonna rewrite your problem, but instead of your variable, you're gonna write your parentheses, and don't forget your exponent up in the corner outside your parentheses. So we get negative 4.25 y squared plus 1.6 x. Again, I'm using my parentheses. Now I'm going to fill them in. So we said that y equals negative 2, and we said x equals, what did we say it was? We said x equals 5. So we're going to get 5 here. Alright, now remember parentheses mean multiply, but I have this squared right here. So squared means I have to write this minus 2 twice. I have to write it twice. So I'm going to get negative 4 point. Oh my god. Okay. Note to self, charge pen beforehand. So annoying. And it's my fault. So I guess I should just be annoyed with myself. So you're going to get negative 4.25 times negative 2 times negative 2. Okay, so again, we wrote it twice because of this exponent. So this exponent tells us that we have to write it twice. It doesn't mean multiply by 2, it's meaning take that thing and multiply it by itself. Then we're going to do the next part, plus 1.6 times 5. Okay, great. Now I'm going to start with the first two. And I get a negative and a negative. So a negative times a negative is same sign, so this becomes a positive. And when it's positive, you don't have to write positive, so I'm going to do negative 4.25 times negative 2. So negative 4.25 times negative 2. We get 8.5. And notice it was positive, like we said it was going to be. Okay, and then we still have that other -2. So we're going to, I'm trying to work on making my 2's nicer. So this guy goes here. Plus, we got 2 positives, so that makes a positive. So same sign's positive. And we're going to do 1.6 times 5. So we get 1.6 times 5. We get 8. Oh, isn't that a nice number? Didn't even plan it. So we're going to put 8 there in a second whenever my stupid pencil thingy is briefly charged until it dies again in 5 seconds. I'm not bothered by it at all. And then we're going to continue. So we're going to do 8.5 times -2. So first off, I'm going to write, these are negative. It's going to be negative because they have different signs. So then we get 8.5 negative 8.5 times 2, except for it wasn't negative 8.5, it was 8.5 times -2. So we get negative 17. Oop, thought it died, but it didn't. Oh wait, but oh my gosh. It did die. It died right after I thought it had died, but it hadn't. Okay, it's fine. Minus 17, and then we get plus 8. So again, you're going to use your number line, and you're going to go, you'll put your dot at negative 17, right? And you'll go negative 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, right? And that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Great. So that puts us at -9. Oh gosh, that was a nightmare to get through, but you guys should be able to do a little bit faster without me yapping the whole time. So this is how you simplify these. You can always rewatch this video, or you can ask me for help after the fact, but hopefully you should understand how to do at least this portion of simplifying and substituting. Alright, great. If you have any questions, let me know. Thanks for sticking through this stupid, crappy video. Alright.